Hello, in this video, I'm going to explain to you how to do international poverty relief the right way. This is Faith Woods for Mission Partners International here in Ontario, Canada, where we have a passion for bringing rescue and hope and purpose for people in poverty in Ukraine and Belarus. So you might be thinking to yourself right about now, what are you talking about? Isn't poverty relief about giving out food and digging wells and building houses? And aren't there a lot of agencies that do that? Well, you're right. There are lots of agencies that are giving out food and digging wells for clean water, engaging in building projects, and they're doing it in some of the poorest countries in the world. And don't misunderstand me, these can be valuable things to do. But today I want to explain to you why I think that there's an issue with that approach. So hang on before you get offended and click away. Just hear me out. I'll come back and explain in a few minutes why I think that this is the wrong way to help people in poverty. Now, many people who are interested in poverty relief are also Christians, so I'm a follower of Christ myself. So if you're watching this, and you might be thinking to yourself then that, well, maybe why she's saying that this is the wrong approach is because it doesn't include any emphasis on sharing the gospel with people. Because don't we need to care for their eternal souls and make sure that they get to heaven one day? So we need to do things like share the gospel and give out food and stuff. Well, in part, I agree with you, but I still think that there's a problem with this approach. So I want to share with you what I think about poverty alleviation and what approach that I'm working to take in our own organization as we help people who are in poverty in Ukraine and Belarus. Now, this is a work in progress. By no means would I ever suggest that I know everything about nonprofits or poverty relief or the world in general. I'm just here sharing my observations, my research, and the experiences that I've had. Now, maybe you're part of an international aid agency, or maybe you're just the compassionate sort. Maybe you're not a Christian. Maybe you could care less about spreading the gospel. But if you just stay with me for a few minutes, I promise you that there will be principles of truth here that I think will have value for you when you're deciding to become a part of an aid agency or you're supporting an aid agency. So before I share what approach I'm learning to adopt for us as a nonprofit agency working in another country, I want you to know that this isn't just something that I landed upon one day and all of a sudden in my mind shouted, "Eureka, that's it." This is actually a combination of a whole lot of ideas that God's been placing into my heart and mind for a long, long time. Many, many years ago, well, 10 to 15 years, that could be many years ago depending on who you are, God began planting an idea in my heart, and it's this: North American culture has impacted Christians in North America, in the West, so long that we no longer recognize the difference between a cultural idea and a scriptural idea. Somehow, in most cases, unconsciously, I think, we've adopted this idea that North America is the best place in the world. We have the best economic systems, the best political systems, and the best culture, even the best innovations in the whole world. So naturally, if we believe this, and if we want to help other people in the world become less poor, and there's really no arguing on average that the West is less materially poor than most countries in the world per capita. So the best way maybe to change the situation for others in poverty is to make them as much like us as possible, right? Now, I love living in Canada. I'm proud of my Canadian heritage, and I'm really grateful for all the advantages that I and my family have from living here. But maybe making the rest of the world just like us isn't really the way to help. Maybe they can't be fixed by trying to westernize them. Our quick solution, drive-through culture, is kind of get in, fix it quick without really understanding the complexity of the culture or the problems even that they're facing. We want to go in, we want to build a well, take some emergency food, and then we want to move on to the next crisis. But is there any real, long-term, sustainable, life-altering change in that approach? In fact, this approach might not really be all that successful at making long-term passionate disciples of Christ. The truth is, I don't think any world political system or economic system is a true reflection of the character and design of God's kingdom. Just think about that for a little while. And another thing that God's really been speaking into my heart a little more recently is the idea of unity in the kingdom of God. Implicit in this concept, I think, is a partnership of equals. God's view of unity really isn't sameness or identicalness. Is that even a word? But you know what I mean. It's not about being the same. It's about unity within diversity, which is really so beautifully captured in the Trinity. So I don't believe for a second that there is some kind of hierarchy of Christians in God's economy or in God's kingdom. We in the West are not really the best Christians in the world. Shocking, right? On average, I don't even think we're necessarily the most passionate or dedicated Christians in the world. I truly think that Christians all around the world have an equal part to play in God's story. We all have talents and a mission from God that are their own to reach our own communities, and some of that can reach back across oceans to impact us here in the West. So the kingdom of God, its work needs all of us. So I want to outline two major principles to poverty alleviation that I think are extremely valuable. I've come to think of these things as major key principles to successful poverty alleviation. And I think that you should look for these in an agency that you want to trust and support. Before we really dive in, I want you to remember that this is not meant to be a comprehensive treatise on all aspects of poverty work. It's not the be-all and end-all, and I can't guarantee you that if you apply these two simple principles, they'll automatically end all world poverty. Of course, the world isn't that simple. People are not that simple, but I can guarantee you that the principles hold truth and that they will be a reliable foundation to build on. Please feel free to leave respectful comments below if you want to share your perspective on these ideas. I'm always happy to chat. Because there's just so much information that I want to share here, I'm going to break this information into two videos. This video, I will share principle number 1. And in my next video, I'll share principle number 2. So if you want to catch all the information I have to share, please hit the subscribe button, and then you'll be notified when I post my second video. So the principle that I want to talk about today is unity. There are a few words that I want to explore under that title, that banner of unity. Partnership, relationship, local, respect, and connection. So I believe that one of the keys to healthy poverty alleviation or international aid, or really to any overseas missions efforts of any kind, is this idea of unity. I can see that this might be kind of a shapeless or vague word to you when I say unity, and sometimes what we really need is practical things that we can sink our teeth into. So let's dive in. We've always had a focus on this idea of partnership in our organization. After all, our name is Mission Partners. And for us, what that really means is that we emphasize and work very hard to collaborate with local leaders for every program or every project that we undertake. We simply believe that supporting local ministers who already have a heart to reach the people in their own community, they already understand the culture, they already understand the challenges that the people in their community are facing. So we've prioritized working through them because it's just the best way to get the job done. You see, our office is located here in Canada. We're only in our outreach country a relatively short number of days a year. But the local leaders, they're there long after we leave, day after day, investing into the lives of those same people. They're being examples, modeling Christ-like behavior, and forging relationships over the long term, built on trust over time. And as foreigners, we simply can't engender that same level of trust, even if we were to live there full time. Because understanding people and the challenges within their culture is not really a simple task. So I want to actively invest in local leaders. I believe that when we partner personally with these men and women, when we listen to what they have to say and what the needs actually are in their communities, we can build this sense of collective respect and collaboration for a common goal. This is something that actually, I believe, goes both ways. There's a meeting of the minds and hearts and spirits when we work together for the kingdom of God. And it becomes a much deeper and richer experience for both of us. And we're able to dig deeply into what needs people really have and what we as the foreigners can truly bring to the table. So I believe that we're far more effective and the change is much more sustainable when we take this approach. So I really think that any poverty alleviation organization or any aid agency should either work through existing local leaders that are already there, or they should raise up local leaders if they really want to see effective, sustainable impact. Even if you're not a Christian agency and you could care less about the kingdom of God, I really do think there are principles here that you can take away in the idea of collaboration with local leaders. So if that's what you're already doing, then that's great. I'd love to chat sometime about what you're doing to achieve social change in the countries or communities where you work. Just leave your comments down below and we can have a collaboration chat. Now, another thing that I like to focus on, or we do as an organization, is the desire to buy things locally as much as possible. Whenever we give out anything, as long as it's something that's available in the country, we always want to do whatever we can to buy from local vendors. This invests in the local economy, which is good for the community. It's good for the country as a whole. And we'll talk more about the idea of the community supporting its own sustainability more in the second video. Here, I'm just talking about it in terms of partnership and collaboration. The last point today that I want to call attention to is this idea of connection. We chose MPI Connect as our website URL several years ago. The truth is, connection is something I highly value. Now, I've talked about partnership across the ocean with locals, but I think it's just as important the connections that we keep and maintain with people here in North America. We really want people to connect through us, connect with our story and with the stories that we share about the people we are serving. We span the ocean on behalf of you, because we want you to share in the global family of God. You're just as necessary a part of that collaboration, of that story, as we are, or the local pastors in Ukraine. And I really want our example to inspire and motivate you to be part of God's story. So to sum up this unity, to me, it means all of us as the Church of God working together in collaboration to build the kingdom of God, to bring healing to everyone who needs it. Not just there, but here too. Well, that's all for today. Stay tuned for my next video where I will talk about how to help people in poverty without destroying their human dignity. If you want to learn more about Mission Partners and the partnerships that we maintain in Ukraine and Belarus, just click on the link at the top to learn more, and you can learn more about us. And remember to subscribe to our channel. Video number 2 will be coming out soon. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk again soon.